Hey everyone, it's Mace1370. Today we are going to do an account overview since there's about a month left in the RTA season, and I think the meta has mostly settled since the carrot buffs. Before we get into it though, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, please see the video description below for a link to my Discord. So keep in mind, as we're going through things, this is just how things are built now, and generally in the last week or two of the season, things shift up a bit because the meta changes. A little while ago we had carrot buffs, and, things are a lot different now than they were before that happened. They, I think, overtuned carrot a little bit, and as a result, there has been a pretty massive shift in the way that people draft and, the priorities for different units and everything like that. It's taken a while to get my head wrapped around it. I think I have an idea now. I'm still changing some things and seeing how it works. So let's get into it. Right now, I'm going to sort by CP, so we're just going to go down the list. Here's Arbiter Vildred. This is my speed or damage build. I think that 240 speed is pretty much where you want to have him. Any faster, I don't think you get too much utility out of, or at least I don't get too much utility out of him, just because you're not really outspeeding too much more until you get to the 280 mark, 270, 280 mark, and he just doesn't do enough damage at that speed range. This is a nice speed for him because he'll outspeed tanks. I have him speed tuned to my General Purgus, who is around 250, so G-Purg will go first and can give him an attack buff if I kind of want to do that aggressive type of draft. Once you get him to the speed you want, you basically just build him with 100% crit and as much damage as you can possibly get him. I think Basket is the best choice for the speedy damage Arby. You could run other things depending on how you use him, of course. If you are only going to draft him in a scenario where he goes on after somebody else goes and you can damage the enemy, then you could consider like Elia's Knife. That I think could be a reasonable option as it's more consistent than Basket. I'm just going to show the gear here really quick. It's just damage, subs, and speed basically, since this Arby is just all about blowing things up as much as possible. Here's top model Luluca. I can't say I pick her very often. She will be a rare last pick. I really like her though, and so sometimes I just pick her because she's fun, even if it's not necessarily the best thing to do. I really like TML just because she has a really unique kit. The CR boost on her skill 2 allows her to be kind of a bridge unit and allow you to be very aggressive at the beginning of the game. In terms of how you build her, we can look at speed again in the beginning here, and I'm running her at 261. And I think this is actually kind of an awkward speed to have her at the moment. I've had her here for a little while. It's very nice because, you do get to outspeed things. I think I'm considering bringing her maybe even a little bit faster. It's kind of how the gear I had rolled. I think ideally you would either have her at like 250 because then you're going to reliably outspeed Arbiter Vildreds, or you run her at, like 280, 290. And the intent with those two different builds would be to either snipe out another really fast unit like a Kisei or something like that, or if you want to bring her down in speed to like the 250 mark, now you're going to try to just do as much damage as possible. And that's kind of how I have her right now. I've put her into Fribbles, and I really don't gain any damage by dropping down to 250 speed, just because of the way my rolls were distributed on gear. So for now I'm just going to leave her here. Maybe I'll get some upgrades that can kind of push her one way or the other, but I wouldn't use 260 as a benchmark necessarily. And again, once you get her to this speed, you just want her to do as much damage as possible. You could consider building some defense on her also, but the scenarios I draft her in, she basically blows something up and then hides in stealth, and so, Dingus Orb is enough. I've never been in a scenario where I thought, if only, she was able to survive one more hit, right? She basically gets exposed, and then she's just going to die, because that's just how it is with her. Kind of same deal as Arby here. You're just going for as much speed and damage as, you can with your gear. And in terms of the set, I had Arby on immunity. I guess I didn't discuss that. I think it's really important on him. I think it's less important on TML, and I think it just shows like the scenarios that you take TML into. I'm just not going to draft this TML into an enemy Cerise because I know she's going to get outsped and she'll get stripped and stuff. And it'll lock my team down with slow and restrict, and then TML just doesn't do as much. So I'm only taking her into scenarios where I know I'm getting first turn, and if I'm not getting first turn, I don't care about immunity. So you can run like pen set like I am, or crit set or something like that. I think Dingus Orb is an amazing choice for her because her skill 2, activates it, and then you're going to do more damage on the next attack. so it really lets you nuke really hard. Here's Briar Witch Asaria. I've changed her build a lot since the previous season. I was running her at 250 because you wanted her to outspeed, things like Arby's and enemy DPS and just blanket debuff people. But that's changed now thanks to Maid Chloe, who can cleanse. And Maid Chloe is generally speed tuned, around like the 210 to 230 mark, I'd say. A lot of people run her at like 220. And you don't want Bysaria going before Maid Chloe because Maid Chloe then just cleanses it all off. If you have Bysaria go after Maid Chloe, then it's really awkward and she kind of has to probably hold her skill 3 so she doesn't get value out of it right away. And that's really important. You can draft Bysaria into Maid Chloe in those scenarios. You can also draft her into like ML Haste. There's a variety of ways that you can use her. She's a very strong unit still. She's definitely one of those like 4th to 5th pick type of units though. So I think the 200 speed mark is fine for her. I might even slow her down and give her even more damage. I've debated about that, and I think that could work. It's almost like a K-run build, honestly. And you're really just trying to hit as hard as you possibly can. You need immunity on her, absolutely, especially when you're running her at like 200 speed, because things are going to go before her, and you can't have her being, stunned by a random ability or something like that. And then I have her on Guiding Light right now. Again, it allows me to run her into Falconer Clearies and things that would, otherwise be able to shut her down. If you wanted even more damage, you could put her on like Wall of Order, for example, and then just not run her into Falconer Cleary. And I think that would be fine. It would limit the scenarios that you could draft her in, but it would probably give you a better result in those, smaller number of scenarios. So I'm opting for a greater, I guess, use case scenario for her. So that's why I have her on Guiding Light. Here's T-Surin. I have also changed her since the last time I went through everything, and at the end of the season. Before. I've slowed her down a little bit. I had her at like 213 speed, and I was noticing she wasn't cutting, in like cleave type situations anyways at that speed, so I thought, why have her at 213? Just slow her down a little bit and give her more damage. She's on basket. You basically just want her to hit as hard as possible. I think Lifesteal set is amazing for her because she has such low base health and does so much damage. It can really give you an extra turn or two of her getting in there and attacking, which could even mean like a second skill 3 at some point in the fight. I think T-Surin is another one of these units that you can really only draft in like the 4th and 5th spot, and she's a fairly niche hero overall, but when she's good, she's really good, so I think it's important to have her built up. I don't have her on immunity. I think you honestly probably could run her on immunity and you would get benefit out of it. I just feel like, for me, I'm going to take her into scenarios where I don't need the immunity, and I want her to do as much damage as possible, so that's why I'm running her on Crozet. Skip over Luna. Here's Operator Sigrid. I don't really ever draft her. I've been trying to figure out a way to fit her in as a potential carrot answer. I feel like I just don't have enough ways to proc carrot's shield before Operator Sigrid takes a turn. So maybe I need to build up some more units around the 250 mark or something like that. Like, I guess right now for me it's mostly just General Purgus, so I need something else. A lot of units I have that are faster than Operator Sigrid also strip buffs, and so they'll just strip the shield off, and that doesn't do me any good. But I basically put her at 235 so G-Per could go first, and then, gave her damage. Obviously immunity, kind of similar to Bysaria, and then you want Guiding Light as well. Just so she can't be, taunted by Falconer Cleary and stuff like that. Here's Assassin Sid. He has actually gotten quite a bit of use recently. The meta seems to shift on, or not the meta, but like drafts in this meta will shift on the dime. Like, people will pick bruisers, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoop, now we're contesting first turn, and they just start slamming speed units. Units like Blue Kisei and A. Coli and stuff like that. And the reason why is because of Carrot. She's so dumb. One of the only ways to answer her is to just blow her up turn 1. So somebody will take, Carrot. So for example, let's say you pick Carrot, and then the enemy responds by going like Falconer Cleary and Blue Kisei at some point in their draft. Then you pick Acid, because Acid is going to outspeed the Kisei, and he's going to blow her up. So Acid has actually seen, I think, a resurgence in use and popularity, and I even mullied up his skill 1 here just because of that. And once he gets full friendship, I'll finish him off, in the S2 department. I think at a minimum, you would need to mullet his skill 3. Basket is going to be the best choice for him, but you could give him a variety of thief artifacts. since his main goal is probably just blowing up squishy units, and he often doesn't need a basket proc to do that, especially if you bring a book with him. So here's Acid. I think that you could even run him at like 290 and be totally fine, because you're honestly picking him to outspeed units in the 250 to like 270, 280 speed range, and so he's going to reliably do that at 290. It doesn't have to be 300 plus. Obviously faster is better for him, and once you get him to 290 and above, you can also pick him as a speed contester against Cleave. I know some people are really cagey about their speed. I'm just not anymore. Maybe I just don't care as much as I used to, but I think that once you get into this really high speed range, it's honestly a coin flip as to who goes first. There's so much variance, right? So if somebody has a 303 speed unit, it's still nearly 50-50, right? And so it doesn't really matter if they know that I'm 302. All right, well, here's Celine. I've put some gear on her, and I need to max level up her artifact. It is max limit broken, just so it's more consistent. I think I got the absolute minimum roll on her exclusive equipment, which is always nice. And then I forgot to farm Hall of Trials for a couple weeks, so kind of a feels bad moment for me. But I built up Celine just so that I could pick her against the Flan drafters, and haven't really had an opportunity to use her, so I'm still reserving judgment. I think she could be useful against Flan, and create a unit that they have to either ban or play around in game by like not using Flan's CR boost or defense break skill in the beginning of the game. For her, I just put her on speed set and then gave her some damage and immunity. I figure she's going to be blowing up squishy targets, so she doesn't necessarily need to have absolute premium gear, or I haven't even molded her yet. I guess I should probably mold her skill too. I wanted to test her out and see how much damage this did, because she'll get attack buff from her artifact. And I think that could probably kill a lot of squishy units. But maybe the mole is nice just in case they try to run a little bit of a bulkier unit to bait, the Celine out. So still reserving judgment on Celine. Here's Landy. I don't think I've substantially changed her since the previous season. She's still Landy. She still does, her job really well. I have thought about making her tankier, though, and dropping her damage a little bit, mostly because of Carrot, and Carrot's annoying. And this is something that you'll notice as you play RTA more. When you have a unit and it's built a certain way and it's performing well, and then the meta shifts and you start to not perform as well as you used to, you really have to look at how everything is put together and how you're interacting and interfacing with this meta. So for example, this is, I think, the exact same build I had on Landy in the previous season, and I've noticed a few times now where she's gotten blown up by Carrot. And I would like to be able to draft Landy into Carrot, because there's really only several AoE DPS that are worth picking, and they're highly contested right now, Carrot and Landy basically being the two of them. And if your opponent takes Carrot first, and then you don't take the Landy, they often take the Landy, and you're put in a spot where you're playing against Carrot and Landy, and that's not usually a great place to be in. I think there might be some answers to it, but it feels like it puts you at a disadvantage. So since, I'm getting blown up by Carrots, I think I might raise her HP a bit more, and drop probably her attack and crit damage a bit. Maybe try to get her HP up to like 15 or 1600, and seeing what offensive stats I could get with that. I'll give it a shot and see if that helps me survive, and it might increase the ability for me to draft Landy early on, especially against a Carrot. That said, right now this build performs super well. Overall, I think that you can really cheap out on damage and make her bulky. So she has on some pretty nice bruiser gear. She's one of the premium units, that you try to contest for and get as often as you can. Guiding Light is obviously really, I think, her best in slot. Some people meme with like Bloodstone and stuff, but I just don't think it's as good. Okay, here's LQC. I've swapped up her builds a couple times in between the end of last season and now. I was running her on a super high attack build, and that was okay. It did do some nice splash damage. I had her on Hellcutter, and then I noticed that I wasn't always one-shotting Fallen Cecilias, even with attack buff. And so I wanted a lot more crit damage so that I could do that, and it dropped my attack down. So I'd say I'm running her at the bare bones of tankiness right here, and she needs probably 100% crit. And I put her on Sigurd Scythe just because her crit is so high. I feel like she doesn't benefit as much from Hellcutter. I need to fit in another 4% crit chance in here somewhere. Yeah, I'm not going to do it on this gear, so we're going to have to move some stuff around. So this is kind of a temporary LQC build. I haven't been drafting her a ton, but I think she is still a really good answer to like FCC, for example, or Troublemaker Crozet in this meta. We had a moment there, it was about a week-long period when Troublemaker Crozet was buffed, everyone was using him, and everyone forgot about their LQCs. Then they remembered I have a unit that can delete a dark unit, and they drafted LQC, and Troublemaker Crozet is no longer in the meta, so that's kind of how it goes. Here's Ruele. I think he's kind of a complete meme right now, and part of the reason for that is that he got really hurt by the Frenzy changes, honestly. The Frenzy changes nerf healing, which is, you wouldn't necessarily think it would affect him that much, but it actually really does, because when he's on lifesteal build, he just doesn't heal for that much anymore. And I remember being able to fairly reliably get Ruele solos off in the previous season, if you drafted him in the in the right scenario. And now it's like almost impossible to do that, because he will just really kind of get whittled down even through misses, and the lifesteal just can't sustain him. So I like almost never draft him. I can't think of a single time I've drafted him this season and won. I've accidentally picked him once or twice and I lost both times, so don't play with Ruele. Here's Spectre Tenebria. Everyone's running her on lifesteal these days, it seems like. I think this is a very solid build for her. You want her around these tank stats, either on lifesteal or on speed set, if you're going to draft her in a bruiser scenario. You could drop a significant amount of bulk and increase her damage, and then draft her in kind of an aggressive, even a cleave type comp, but I don't really play that style, so I have her built on this bruiser style. The main advantage to lifesteal, and I've discussed this in previous YouTube videos, but the main advantage to lifesteal is that it allows you to play her into carrot a little more easily. And there's other like niche scenarios where late game having her on lifesteal edges out that win. The real benefit right now is carrot. Lifesteal helps heal back that burn damage, and it makes it really, really hard for Carrot to kill Spectre Tenebra if Carrot is the only reach on the enemy team. So keep that in mind if you're struggling with Carrot. Spectenny on lifesteal could be a reasonable solution to that problem. Here's the gear. It, I think, is all really high rolled, and you really need like kind of absurd gear to run her on lifesteal. Book is still, I think, the best choice for her. Once you get her to about 185 speed in these tank stats, you want as much damage as possible, and I would say this is kind of like the minimum I would want for damage. All this gear rolled really, really well, and I kind of feel like her stat line is like right at the exact minimum of where it's acceptable, so I think it's really hard to get her on lifesteal gear. Not many people can do it. Here's Holiday Euphine. Basically never draft her. Probably would need to make her a little bit faster, but I think in the niche scenario where I wanted to pick her against Basar, I could. She has fully, 90 gear and stuff on, and it's not absolutely horrible. Should probably go through the left side here a little bit faster, or a little bit slower. Snow Crystal, still good for her. That's what you want to be able to CR boost. If you don't run Snow Crystal, you're going to have to put her at like the 2, I guess, like 30, 40, 50, somewhere in that speed range. And it's really hard to get her to have enough bulk and, damage at that point. I used to have her on a really high attack build, which was fun, and then Carrot took all of that gear, so there you go. Here is Faithless Litiga. She is another one of these like really niche picks. Sometimes at the end of a draft, Faithless Litiga can do a lot of work for you. For example, I think she's pretty good against Bysaria. You can pick her. She'll pop Bysaria out of stealth, strip off that immunity, and can reset her, and then Bysaria just does literally nothing that game. So you can use her in those scenarios if you don't have, like a cleanser or something like that. You can also pick her, theoretically, if she's fast enough, you can use her as a counter pick to Basar for the same reason. You outspeed and then, reset the Basar. So I'll draft her in kind of those niche scenarios. Also, if you're going really aggressive, she's a good, like, kind of pick at the end there. If you have, like, Basar and her or something like that, I think they pair pretty well together as complements to like Arby and other aggressive heroes of that sort to kind of do a slow cleave on your opponent. So Flitica is still really good. You really don't see her very often, but when she's good, she works. I have her on Guiding Light just because I'm running her like 278, so she's going to get outsped by a lot of things in this meta, so you kind of need Guiding Light unless you're going to run her at like 290, 300 or something silly like that. Alright, Secret and Charles are PvE gamers right now, so we don't need to go over them. Here's Ravi. I think Ravi is my highest gear score unit overall, so this gear rolled really well. I've switched her builds up a few times, but it's really just kind of like replacing items with better items, and trying to maintain a good stat line. I was talking to Platy actually, and he said he's running his on immunity right now because of Flan. I just don't really bring my Ravi into Flans, but it's something I'm considering. I'm still using the Dispel EE here, and you want Sigurd's Scythe on her, obviously. So for Ravi, I think 160 speed is a good amount. I don't think you need to go crazy on speed with her. You could even drop her down to like 155 maybe, but I found like 160 is really the sweet spot. And then you want her pretty much as tanky as possible. So I think like 1600 defense is about the mark where I felt like, yeah, she's thick enough. And then 19k HP was also really good, but you could, use like an 18k HP one, and that would be fine too. Once you get that, you just want damage stats, right? And you can kind of cheat on attack with her because her passive stacks attack up. And that lets you run her at like, 2800 attack, and then like 250 crit damage is kind of like the benchmarks you're looking for Ravi. Here's Arbiter Vildred number 2. Had him on kind of a bruiser build for a while, was trying it out. It seems fine. I'm going to try a counter build, just as, another option to pick against cleavers and see how that does. He's a little less tanky than he was before, but I'm running him on speed boots still just because I want him to be able to take turns. I thought about putting him on like HP or defense boots or something, but I feel like he's still just going to die anyways. I don't know. I almost never draft this Arby. And the reason why is because most cleavers are banning Arby these days. So it's kind of hard to test him. But I think that this is still a viable pick against cleavers if they don't pre-ban him. You want Moonlight Dreamblade on him. And I think you want enough damage on him so that when he reses, he can kill squishies. And I think that's probably enough. Here's Champion Zerato. I think he's pretty mediocre. As a pick right now. There are probably rare scenarios where you can take him into like really heavy debuff teams that don't have a ton of damage. I almost want to run him just on Ayala Violin, just because it just feels so bad using him right now. I feel like you kind of need to use proof, but maybe I just put Ayala on him and say I'm only going to bring him into teams that can't kill him basically. Either way, this is his build right now. You want about 3k attack. He'll have that once I max out proof. He had a max proof before, I just moved it to somebody else. And then you just want him really thick. Like 15k HP and 1500 defense or so I think is solid. And, as much damage at that point as you can possibly get. You do want some speed on him just so he actually like takes turns and is able to get defense up as soon as possible. And that's kind of the problem running him on like a lifesteal set, for example. It's like so hard to get him tanky with any amount of damage and speed. You have to give up one of those things, whether it's usually speed if you're doing him on lifesteal. So I feel like it's just not as good. All right, here is Researcher Carrot. I've actually switched her build up a couple times. I was running her at like 4100 attack and like 1700 defense, but only like 12 to 13k HP. This is actually interesting because that was the build that myself and a lot of people were running when she first came out and then dominated everything. And one of the ways that people would answer Carrot was Blue Crow, and they would horse her. And as a result of that, I noticed my Carrot is getting horsed. I was like, I need to raise her hit points up and get her out of Crow horse range. So around the 15k HP mark is actually really silly because I think it's one of her skill tree things, one of her many skill tree things, is that when she's above 80% health, is it this one? Nope. This one? Yeah. When she is at 80% health or more when attacked, decreases damage received by 20%. Okay? So that's basically like a mini Proof of Valor effect on her. And as a result of that, it is really hard for Crow Horse to kill Carrot when she's at like 15k HP if you have an Aureus on the field. Because it's working through the Aureus, and also the damage mitigation. So I had to lower her attack a little bit to get there. I might even lower her speed to get her attack back up. I feel like this attack might be a tad on the low side, and I would really like 4100 attack again, so I'm going to see what Fribbles can do and see if we can, get that attack up. But this is, the Carrot that I'm running right now. I think it works fine for the most part. I would probably shoot for 4100 attack, though, if you can. Book is really good on her. I think it's a really solid choice. Another option, would be Etika Scepter. So we can go over that. These two heroes aren't used with this carrot. So here's carrot number 2. I built 2 carrots because, she's waifu, and I thought it would be fun to play around with different builds. And I was hoping that I would be able to use 1 carrot in a cleave type setup. So I had one that was kind of built on damage and stuff, and it was kind of underwhelming. It felt like the critical hit chance just didn't add that much. Her multipliers aren't that good. It's really the burn damage is where everything comes from. So I threw on this gear on her with the intent of having a tankier, speedier carrot to cycle on Etika Scepter. So I might, this is the type of carrot that I might pick into somebody I know is going to like do a late frenzy type game, right? Where I know I'm not going to one-shot him out the gate. And I know that we're going to play a lot of turns and go into like frenzy 7 or 8 or whatever. And in those scenarios, I feel like Etika Scepter is going to give you more value, and this higher speed is going to give you more value. You're going to turn cycle more, you're going to get to, the skill 3 more with that higher speed in Etika Scepter. So that's kind of my thought with this carrot. Okay, here is Adventure Ross. I've changed his build up a lot as well. He had similar defensive stats before, but he was at like 250 speed. So I dropped a lot of speed and I gave him some effect res. He's not really on premium gear anymore. Like you can see he's on this like arena helmet. And that's just because he doesn't really fit in this meta right now, and so I'm never picking him. I think if he cycles back into the meta, I would change up his build a bit and give him better gear, so you would just see probably more like speed and ER or something. Here's A. Cole. She is missing a boot, I guess. I don't really draft her right now, but she'd be around the 250 speed mark, with like 3,500 attack and about this much crit damage probably is what I would shoot for. I've debated about trying to build her like Omega Fast as another speed contest, like a complementer to Acid. I don't have the gear to get her to that speed yet though. But yeah, A. Cole, I don't draft so much. Here is Archdemon Shadow. Here's a hero that is really fun to play, but you almost never get to. Every so often you'll get a game with Amaro, and then it's a lot of fun. This is the build I'm running. You just kind of want her tanky with enough effectiveness to start, debuffing things into Frenzy, and counter set is amazing on her. I think this is an amazing helm, but it's good for like a Soul Weaver. I need a helm with probably maybe a little bit less speed and more like tank stats, and I think she'll be done because the rest of her gear is solid. It's just that stupid helm. Also, yeah, this neck is, I guess, yeah, she needs a better neck too, because this neck I honestly want to kind of re-roll. Well, honestly, I guess it's probably best to re-roll the ER into something else, maybe speed, and then use this on her and find a helm that has less speed, and that would give me a better overall distribution. Just because she doesn't really need the ER. So here's her gear. Having effect on her is really nice though, because it'll help you seal units into frenzy. This is Alencia. Rarely, if ever, draft her, so she's on hand-me-down gear, and I speed tune her down to about 195 because I want her to go after maids and strip occasionally. So that's when I'll pick her. Into sometimes, like if people go like maid and SSB, I think she'd be a good pick. That could be pretty solid. Basically maid plus like water units, could be good. I think she could be okay into Kisei actually, just because she'll pop Kisei out of stealth and do a lot of damage. So I think she's kind of a viable niche pick right now, but I wouldn't pick her first or anything. Here's SSB. Similar build to how I had her before. I think I did get an upgrade, so she's a little tankier now, and obviously on drink still. I really like this SSB build. She has a ton of bulk, and she's basically just going to sit back and do damage slowly and whittle the person down. She's still super draftable, even with all the counters and stuff that they've released for her, and I think still a great unit. You just kind of have to be very careful how you pick her. You can't draft her early on because you have to play around Rwana, Eller, Crow, stuff like that. Here's Lilias. She's a counter pick to flurries. Just because a lot of flurries run like 50 to 60 effectiveness, or maybe even a little more, but she has just enough ER to basically tell them you can't, use your skill 3 on me. and then she'll cleanse it off when they use it on somebody else. And then I have her speed tuned at 230, so she's going to go before, you know, the units that might get hit with Flurry's S3. So she'll go first on my team usually. Have her on Adamant Shield. So I think she's a decent, you know, counterpick to Flurry. You could build her crit damage and do all sorts of things with Lilias, though. She's a really flexible unit, and I'm thinking of building a second one, honestly, because of that reason. Here's Ambitious Tywin. He has also fallen off the meta a decent amount recently, but still a very strong hero. So I haven't built up on that crit damage build before. You're even seeing some people use him on the effectiveness build, which I think is also viable right now. The thing is, they've released a fair number of immunity buffers, like DJB, and you know, he got a buff, and other units like that, like Ray, Adventure Ross. People have answers to ML Tywin, so you can't just like slam him anymore. But occasionally, when you're like midway through the draft, it'll be very clear that they have no answer to ML Tywin, and then you can take him. And he still does, you know, ML Tywin things if they're not prepared for it. So keep an eye out for when you can draft him. Here is designer Lillabet. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. I feel like she never does enough. I probably need to like lower her HP and give her more crit damage a bit, but she just, I don't know. She just feels not good. I feel like she doesn't do enough damage. She doesn't cleanse enough. It's just, I've tried her in a variety of scenarios, and maybe she just doesn't fit my play style. But she just, yeah, I feel like she just doesn't do enough. I will take her sometimes into Fairytale Tenebria, especially if they have her and like another debuffer. Then I could consider it. If you're like really desperate for a cleanser and you've kind of drafted yourself into a corner where you can't take another Soul Weaver. Yeah, so that's designer Lillabet. Here's G-Purg. He is on cleave duty basically, 250 speed. So I've changed his build. Before I had him around like 220, I think, and he was a little thicker with more crit damage. And I found that I never picked him because I feel like G-Purg is a unit that if you pick, you want to be really aggressive with. And so I think he's just better at 250. It allows you to pick Arby, you know, 240, and you always get that attack buff, and, you know, it just really sets up your team more. So I took him off Draco Plate and put him on Warhorn. I think it's a really good artifact when you're going aggressive. He still has this, you know, increased combat readiness CR, push exclusive equipment. But yeah, you're basically just using G-Purg as your opener. So I think he's better at 250. Here is Blue Crow. Blue Crow kind of has hand-me-down gear. It's okay. I basically wanted him around 26-27 KHP with 1700 defense, you know, and enough ER to not get randomly provoked in the beginning of the game. Ideally, I'd want him on immunity with these stats and maybe some more HP. But I feel like we have so many tanky ER units we have to build now, I'm like running out of stuff. Here is Fighter Maya. I think she actually has like pretty high gear store items. She's not really meta right now. I haven't touched her build since last season. I'm not sure if I picked her since last season either. I did take off Elbrus. I gave it to somebody else to test. Who's using my Elbrus right now? Oh, it's probably Ilyanav, because I was doing Guild Wars with Ilyanav. Well, that's Fighter Maya. I don't really pick her. Crimson Armin is a hero that got buffed recently, so I think she's actually a viable pick now in some scenarios. If you want to pick her against Cleave, I think that, you know, can be a decent option. Some Cleavers will randomly like pre-ban Blue Crow, you know, and if you're afraid to take FCC, or if they take FCC, I think it's good to have like backup tanks basically. So C Armin is a unit that can fill that role. I can't say I draft her very often though. One of the nice things about her is that she is a gold unit, and so you can pick her in a bruiser fight if you know the enemy has access to LQC and they're trying to push you down a path where you have to take FCC. You can just pick C Armin instead, and that prevents them from using LQC to, you know, nuke your team. Here's Troublemaker Crozet. He's gotten like the very last scraps of tank, you know, gear with ER, so I don't think his gear score is what it used to be when I was running him on a better set. I honestly almost never pick him these days, just because LQC gets picked and then bombs him. He might be better on Adamant Shield too. I have him on Bastion, you know, just because. But yeah, Crozet, people don't take so much anymore. Here's FCC. I think I might want to change her build and maybe even slow her down a bit and give her a little more defense. I think would be good. But gear is getting thin with all the tanks we have to build. So I think that you want her around 28k HP. I think 200 to 210 speed is probably a good amount of speed for her. And then you get to choose for your leftover stats if you want crit dam or crit chance or effectiveness. I probably do want effectiveness. I'm testing out crit chance a bit just to see how much I like that. It's really hard to get these tank stats and then get this up to like 85% crit chance, which is probably where I would want it if I was going to go with crit. So I made a switch over to effectiveness. Having like this kind of 50-50 crit feels a little unreliable, so you're like not always getting value from it. Cerise is on, I guess like a suboptimal speed set, but she's fast enough to do her job. I abandoned like the 300 plus speed Cerise as a speed contester because Cleave always first picks her if they're going to do that. So you never really get to use her in that role. So to me, it doesn't really matter if she's like 310 or 290. I put her on Confile just so she can potentially get defense breaks and, you know, do damage. So still a really strong pick in the right scenario. And you really just honestly put speed and effectiveness on her and she'll do her job. Here's Ilyanav. I used her in Guild War. I feel like she is not useful right now. I think she's a really fun hero. She has like an awesome, you know, looking animations. Her kit seems like fun. The problem is that injury is just totally pointless right now. But I put her at 220 so that she would put crit damage buff on my team before my damage dealers would go. They really need to improve injury. It caps out at 50%, and I kind of don't know why, but it does. You know, it takes so much work to get even just to 50%. Who cares if it goes to 100? Like, you're going to be in Frenzy 9 at that point anyways. So yeah, Ilyanav, I don't really think she fits into the meta right now. Here's Eller Crow. He is on, I think, okay gear. This helm is bad. I've realized as I've geared my units, I don't have a ton of items with like really high HP and defense. I have a lot of items with like middle of the road HP and defense, you know, that like rolled well into other things also. And so it's actually kind of hard for me to build tanks with like super high HP and good defense and okay speed. I usually, like, I can build a better, like, it'll still have a very high gear score, but then it'll have crit or like effectiveness or something like that. So I'm gonna have to start looking out for pieces with, you know, just like dedicated really high HP and defense rolls, I think. For Eller Crow, I really like him at the 230 speed mark. It feels really good. You know, you can oftentimes take turn 1 with him if you're doing like a bruiser fight and nobody's trying for any speed shenanigans. Eller Crow will just go first. And then that lets you put immunity up, and him going early is really valuable because you want to use your skill 3 before they use their skill 3s, because oftentimes their skill 3s are AoE, right? And you want to put them in a situation where they don't want to AoE into Eller Crow. Especially if you have souls. If you can soul burn him before the enemy turn goes, it is so awkward for them. I know some people think he's kind of fallen off the meta recently. I still think he's honestly very good. You just have to, you know, pick him in the right scenarios. I think him combined with Blue Crow is a fairly decent answer to Carrot if you bring other buffers along with them. So if you can bring someone, basically you like buff clog your team. And so Carrot, when she dispels, she's not dispelling immunity that Eller Crow gives, and then it can be awkward for Carrot and force her to, you know, hold her skill 3 for a turn or two, a turn cycle or two. And there can be a lot of benefit from that. Politis, I need to like actually put real gear on. This is like literally random gear, so I think that I'll probably switch her to a damage build at some point. Here's Maid Chloe. Use Maid Chloe quite a bit. She is a really powerful Soul Weaver right now. I was using her on Shamadra Staff for a while, which is a solid artifact on her, and it was kind of a meme, I guess, giving my team like 60 ER or whatever it was. And it would like occasionally be pretty effective, and then like a lot of games it just wouldn't do anything. And I realized that I probably value having Potion Vial on her more because it lets her deny Flurry oftentimes in the beginning. Like if you Flurry someone and then Maid Chloe does Potion Vials off the provoke, it feels really bad for the Flurry player. So you want her speed tuned to put attack buff with her skill 3. onto you know, your team before the damage dealers go, so 220 is a good speed. And then I think like 150 ER is fine on her, and then she actually gets a 20% from her passive, so she's a pretty good ER right now. And then you just want her tanky. I think this is a really solid amount of tankiness for Maid Chloe. I think she's on actually pretty good gear. But she's a super fun pick right now. I enjoy using her. She pairs really well with Carrot and Landy. Here's Fairytale Tenebria. Here's a unit that I despise on the one hand, but then also draft a fair bit. I like her where her build is at right now. She's fast enough to get the first turn, unless people are like hardcore speed contesting. 260 is fairly speedy. You're gonna outspeed pretty much everything unless people are bringing units dedicated to taking turn 1. So that's nice. And she has a good amount of effectiveness. I think I can actually swap her build around to get her like to 210 or so. I have her on Book, which I like a lot. Book is really powerful. I'm debating about putting her on Compass, and I think once I get the artifact charms to raise Compass up, I think I might give it a try, because I think Curse Compass would basically give her like 250 effectiveness out the gate, and I think she would be a real terror, just because you could bring her into, you know, units like DJ Basar and just not even care. So that's her gear. It's all very effectiveness heavy. Here's Dain. Rebuilt her to around the 240 mark, just so that she can get attack buff up ASAP. Sometimes she can outspeed units like Arby and stuff, and if she gets her skill 3 off before then, you can get value from, the anti-crit. So I think that this is a pretty decent Dain. You want her fairly tanky, so 17 KHP and 1700 defense is a good amount. And then you just want her to be able to turn cycle really quick, so the speed is nice. 150 ER I think is a fine amount on her, and you want Rod of Amaryllis for her. Dizzy basically never draft, but she has random counter gear on with a reasonable amount of speed, effectiveness, and bulk. Just so I think she's like technically usable if I picked her, but she's not on premium gear by any means. Here's Ruele. Putting Ruele on Potion Vial as well. If you draft her and Maid Chloe together, both on Potion Vial, that can be a powerful combo, because they're both like popping off and cleansing each other and stuff. So you can you can use that strategy. She's also really good into units like Blue Crow or LQC, units that are going to try to like use their skill 3 and nuke a target, and turn the game into a 4v3 right away. Ruele just brings that person back. Also good, if you're using Spectenny and they have enough reach to kill her, you can just bring Spectenny back, and then you get quite a few turns before they're able to do it again. So Ruele is, I think, a really solid character right now, and I will draft her every so often. You kind of want her around that 150 ER mark, I think is good. 200 speed is nice, and then you just want her tanky, so 19 KHP and 2100 defense will get the job done. Here's Sageball. Using him as kind of an anti-cleave hero at the moment. I was trying a meme build on him where I had him at like 253 speed and like 200% effect res with immunity. His HP and defense were obviously a lot lower with that, and I was thinking like, oh, maybe I can bring this into Cerise's so that he'll resist and then still push up and it'll take him off guard. It was just like, it kind of didn't always work. I tried it a couple times. I don't think it was worth losing all of that HP and defense, though, because then it meant you could not take him into teams that didn't have Cerise, right? And then could just blow him up instead. The ER didn't do anything. So I switched him back to this build. I think you can run him one of two ways. You can run him at like 250 speed with the intent of like, putting a lot of pressure on Cleave to answer him, because he's gonna push up really fast in the beginning of the match. Or you can run him down at like 220 speed and build him even bulkier with like some attack. I've never really run that build. I've only had him briefly because he just came into the coin shop, and I've heard that build has kind of fallen off. That was the build that you would use to like go into Frenzy and solo with him, but there's a certain fire mage named Carrot who came out and makes that hard to do apparently. So I guess I would advise against that build. You kind of just want him speedy, tanky. Some effectiveness I guess would be nice. He probably has some he has random ER. Where's that ER coming from? Oh, it's from this. I probably wouldn't regem this just because some other Soul Weaver or something could use it. Alright, here's Destina. Switched her build also. So before I was running her around the 195 mark, I think, with Water's Origin. And I had more ER on her. She was at like 260 ER. The intent was use Water's Origin to push her up above my DPS at the beginning of the match. That didn't work out super well because people that run damage Tea-Time Tenebrias, it like totally jacked up my speed tuning. So I think this is a lot more reliable to have her around 214 speed, so she takes turn 1 before my DPS do, I should say. She's not like taking turn 1 in the match. And then I put her on immunity. She was not on immunity before. So if you're struggling with tea time, I would really advise getting a green cleanser. So Destina or Ray are good options. Putting them on immunity and then as much ER as you can. You don't need 300 ER to prevent stuff from happening. The reason why is because it's a coin flip because they're green if tea time even hits them. So if they have immunity and they get the 50%, like off element, miss from that, they don't strip your immunity, and that's a good game for them right there because they won't strip immunity, they won't land any of their debuffs. So in addition to that, let's say they do strip the immunity, now they have to get not 15%ed. So that's 65% chance right there. So 65% of games just with immunity alone, with 0 ER, you're going to resist. And it's actually even higher than that because let's say they do hit your green unit, they don't get 15%ed, so they get rid of the immunity. Now they have to not get 15%ed on the provoke. So it ends up being, I think, about a 70% chance or so for them to not provoke your Destina, if you do the math. And that's pretty good. And that's with no ER. So any ER you have above their effectiveness is going to like even push it higher in your favor. So if I can get imprints on Destina, I think she'll be quite hard for them to deal with. Running her on touch just to like mitigate some of the AoE damage coming in, when they try to cleave. Here's Rwana. I don't think I've really changed her build. Basically just give her ER, give her a bunch of bulk, and put her on counter set and immunity, and she'll do her job. Rwana is a really strong, unit to bring into SSB, obviously. Also really strong to bring into Tea-Time Tenebria for the same reason. And then in addition to that, she will, mitigate a lot of incoming damage with, that skill 2, the passive heal. You can use her against Politis also. She's good against Politis because, again, it's triggering that skill 2 heal. Gives your team a CR boost, all that good stuff. Alots I just use for expeditions, so he's on random expo gear. Here's Falconer Cleary. I don't think I've changed her build really since the last time. She's still speedy and tanky, and she does her job. I think having her really fast is great because it allows you to speed contest with her, but you can run her all the way down to like 275, 280 speed, and she'll still do her job just fine, even 260 probably. You're not going to be able to pick her as a speed contester, so you won't have her for that role, but for all the others you can. I think JFA is an excellent artifact for her. The buffs give her solo potential and can really screw up your opponent. And if you don't have that, you could use Adamant Shield, you could use Bastion, like honestly any knight artifact. I wouldn't use Aureus because you probably can't get her HP high enough. But for the most part, any sort of mitigation would be good. I'm going to try this DJB just to see if it could work with like a cleave type comp. He's at 255 speed, so could be good against people that are bringing units that have debuffs and no strips, like ML Tywin or something like that, if you're trying to be really aggressive against them. So this is the DJB I'm going to try to run. He has like almost no ER, right? But he's speedy. And a lot of this gear is, I think, suboptimal and can be regemmed and stuff. So I think his stats could get even better. Let's see. Yeah, and honestly, I think I might have gotten a ring recently to make him even faster, so that could be good. All right, let's see. Here is Basar. Basar is somebody that I think is pretty good in the meta right now. You can really tune down his speed. I might do that, but it's nice having him a little fast to help you outspeed people. It would be nice if I could get like HP gear with some speed on it. That would help to kind of like fix this imbalance, right? Because he's like he has a weird HP defense distribution. I think Book is the best choice for him. Even if you get a bunch of effectiveness, you really don't want to get 15% on the pushback and the strip. So, yeah, that's Basar. Not much to say about him. Here's Bloodman Haste. I think you want him pretty tanky and about 200 speed, and that's kind of all you need with immunity. You bring him into Arby, he's going to do his job, right? You can even bring him into Make Chloe these days, too, in the right scenarios, and that'll work pretty well. I really like Idol's Cheer on him. You could consider other Soul Weaver artifacts, like Potion Vial, could be good. So could Portrait would be a good option if you want to increase the damage on his skill 3. That might be it for my RTA units. Let's see. Oh no, I have at least one more. Here's Counter Elena. Counter Elena, I'm trying out as like a tech against Carrot, just to see if this works. I need to play more games against Carrot with Counter Elena to see how viable of a healer she is. I'm getting the sense she doesn't do enough against Carrot, but having the skill 1 Soulburn to dispel everything is pretty nice. So I think she might be able to do work. We're gonna give her a shot, and I think that's it for my RTA units. These other ones aren't really built. Yeah, I kind of took gear off like Kairon and stuff. Is there anybody down here? I'm building up Kisei. I Luxacked and got her 10 speed EE on the first try. That was amazing. Pavel, haven't built, but might. Working on Lilias number 2. And yeah, I think that's it. So if you guys have any questions, please post in the comment below. I would appreciate your thoughts on my builds. Otherwise, that's it. Later.